Well, welcome to Technology and Education Today. I'm Richard Smith.
And I'm Caroline Crawford, and today we have a rather interesting study that Richard would like to discuss. We're talking about a in-course discussion concerning the use of smartphones and tablets and laptops, and not as instructionally appropriate, but as different types of distraction that the learners are engaging in.
Students these days come to class with a variety of technology, handheld technologies, tablets, phones, and what have you. And when they come into class, they don't put the technology away. As the professor is teaching or the instructor is teaching, the class, there are many students in the class that will be texting back and forth with friends or playing games on the internet or whatever else they're doing with their technology, and or especially the texting. And what this study showed, and it was a study by Barney McCoy, who's an associate professor of broadcasting at the University of Nebraska, Lincoln.
And it wasn't only one university, it was several different locations.
It is that the students saw the use of this technology in classrooms as distracting, but only distracting in a minor way, and not really affecting with very much their learning, not affecting their learning very much.
I found it very interesting that they were more distracted by other people's usage of the technology than their own usage.
Yes, so there are two ways to be distracted. One, you as a technology user can be distracted, and two, a person sitting next to you who is not using technology, who is not texting or anything, can also be distracted, attention pulled away from what's happening at the front of the room with the professor. And that's sort of like the idea of when you go to a movie, many people
have to talk through it.
They have to talk through the movie, or they will receive phone calls and messages and texts.
And they won't leave.
And at the beginning of the movies now, before the show starts, you always see a sign or something, announcement.
Turn
those phones off, because, well, it's your choice in the movie as to whether or not you want to watch the movie or not. But what's happening is that you're distracting the person or people sitting around you, and that's the phenomenon that's going on now in college classrooms.
Right.
So the question is, do we really feel that this is a problem in the class, in a college class? And if so, is it a major problem? Now, I would say yes, it's a problem, because in essence, what the students are doing is what passes for multitasking. And I think we spoke about multitasking in a previous edition of this series. But the bottom line is, all the research indicates that multitasking in a class
during any learning experience,
detracts from the learning experience. It's simply difficult to do more than one or two things at the same time, and all your concentration, especially in the classroom, when you're trying to accomplish a task, or in this case, listen to what the professor has to say, or if you're doing group work in a college classroom, what the rest of the people in your group are doing, it detracts from that. It makes it more difficult to learn.
Absolutely. But recognizing that we do have all this technology that the students are bringing into the learning environment, which is fine. Depending upon who the instructor is, it can be totally fine. But having a discussion at the very beginning of class is very important. For example, in any of the face-to-face or the hybrid type courses that I offer, I always have a discussion at the very beginning of class. I have no problem if you have your cell phone on. I understand that you have a life outside of the learning environment and your degree program, and that's fine. However, it needs to be turned off to the point that it's not going to be bothering anyone else. And if it does become a distraction in class, that is a significantly different issue, and there will be concerns that will be raised.
See, I would say that's an immediate distraction. If I'm teaching a lesson, and a student or more than one student has a cell phone on, it could be very low. The student starts, the lesson is going on, the cell phone buzzes, and the student feels as if he or she must answer that phone. That means the student gets up, leaves the classroom, and in doing so can break an entire train of thought, or break my line or direction in getting to a certain point. It's distracting for me. It's certainly distracting for the person who went to answer the phone, and it's also distracting for everybody else in the classroom. And this doesn't matter whether it's a lecture hall, or worse, if it's a seminar class, because what it's actually saying is what's coming over that phone is more important than what's going on in the class.
Well, sometimes it may be, because we do have non-traditional, a growing number of non-traditional students in our classes, and they do have lives outside of the university, which is fine, and sometimes that needs to be addressed. But on the other hand, those students are paying tuition monies to sit in on that learning environment, same as everyone else surrounding
That's
that
right.
person. So there is that fine line between, if you must have some form of connection, a tether with your children, with the keepers of your children during 3-4 hours of the day, that's your business, and that's fine. Once your business starts interfering with our learning environment, everybody else has paid tuition, just like this one person who feels the need to constantly be tethered to whatever situation is going on. So once it starts impacting the other learners in class, then it does become an issue.
I would say it's an immediate impact. And if you have a large class of students, and every 2 or 3 minutes somebody else has what they consider to be an emergency phone call come through, and it's difficult for me to conceive what kind of an emergency would pull you out of a class on such a consistent basis, then that's going to be a distraction to the learning process. And as you say, people are spending money for their college education. And I say I went through 3 years of high school, 3 years of junior high, 4 years of college, and I don't ever remember, not to mention graduate school, any crises coming that the student would have to have been pulled out of class immediately, that they had to have a telephone in the class. I think what's happening.
Well, you were very lucky that you went through the situation where you didn't have family or anything to worry about outside of that environment.
I think what is happening is that the technology itself is fueling the crisis, because that technology is there. All of a sudden, every little thing now becomes a crisis that you have to get in contact.
Well, that's our culture too. To be fair, that's our culture.
So it's an interesting phenomenon. I think maybe Barney McCoy could do another study, or maybe we could do a study on the impact of technology producing sort of these self-induced crises that interrupt either a classroom situation or a work situation or similar situations. It's like an unintended consequence of an innovation in a social setting.
Well, to bring up 2 points, one point being people who are engaging in the technology are not paying attention in class. So one would, and I've had this happen a few times, one would suggest that the idea would be, if you miss something, then you go to the professor's office hours and say, okay, I didn't understand this. The professor isn't usually unaware of what's going on in class. And at least for myself, I notice when someone else is using their technology, their smartphone, playing games, texting too much, whatever, and not engaging with the material. I do notice that. So when you show up to my office hours and say, I really didn't understand this information, can you help me? Let's have a discussion about being focused and appropriate in our classroom environment, because you're in class, you already obtained this information, it was your choice to be distracted. And it is not my responsibility to act in that manner. I am not your high school instructor. I'm your university professor.
In this instance, the student has caused a problem for himself or herself.
Choosing not to self-regulate your behaviors, not to act professionally, is your choice.
Right.
It is not my problem.
And then the student has now caused a problem for the professor, because now the professor has to deal with this problem. And,
you think so?
And is in an uncomfortable position, one, of having to explain that to the student or turn the student away. And 3, it makes extra work because now the professor has to deal with that student. But basically what's happening is the students don't feel that the use of this technology for reasons other than learning in the classroom is affecting their ability to learn.
And that's a choice.
And the bottom line is that it is affecting their ability to learn. If you ask them, is it affecting their ability to learn, they'll say, no, I really do understand something. I can do it. But it's
until the assignment comes up.
It's the same thing if you ask a person, ask a person who's drunk and driving, says, can you drive while you're drunk? And that person says,
absolutely, I'm better when I've been drinking.
I'm more careful.
Really?
I'm more careful when I drink when I drive. I drive more carefully. Well, that person thinks that that he or she is actually believes that, but the
the
evidence
moment.
indicates that it's not true, and the evidence also indicates that
No, I have one more point. I want to play devil's
we
advocate
don't have
because
time.
it's a very important
We
point.
don't have time. We are out of time because we've reached the end of technology and education today for this.
He cuts me off.
Cut
I
her
don't
off,
understand.
cut her off.
It's a valid point about
I'm sure
business and industry,
I'm
reality
sure
of
it
the
is,
world.
but we're out of time. I'm Richard Smith.
And I'm Caroline Crawford. Bye.